The moment you think your neighborhood is safe and quiet, that's when the chaos sneaks in. One wrong move, one overzealous HOA officer, and suddenly, your dream home can feel like a prison. Today, you won't believe how far one HOA Karen went to terrorize a homeowner and the lengths the victim had to go just to reclaim peace. Stay tuned because this story spirals into full-blown tyranny. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss jaw-dropping HOA drama stories that leave communities speechless. Trust me, you'll want to see this all the way to the shocking end. From the moment she moved in, Lisa thought she'd found the perfect house, nestled quietly at the end of a tree-lined street. The neighbors were friendly enough, and the community felt safe, organized, and well-maintained. But behind the smiles and manicured lawns lurked an unspoken law enforcer, Mrs. Karen Whitmore, the HOA president. She had moved into the neighborhood years ago and had slowly transformed her role into one that bordered on obsession. Karen wasn't just a president. She was the self-proclaimed guardian of aesthetics, the ultimate arbiter of minor infractions, and a woman who thrived on the power her position gave her. At first, it was the usual petty notices, plants slightly overhanging the fence, garden gnomes she deemed offensive, and cars parked incorrectly by a few inches. Lisa tried to accommodate, tweaking her landscaping, realigning her driveway vehicles, and attempting small concessions, thinking that Karen's strict nature would eventually soften. But it didn't. One afternoon, Lisa noticed a new notice on her door, the envelope thick and ominous, stamped with the HOA logo. It wasn't about plants or parking. This time, Karen had deemed Lisa's newly installed front gate unsightly and a violation of community standards. Lisa was stunned. The gate was tasteful, sturdy, and exactly in line with the neighborhood's style guide. But Karen's interpretation was absolute. Instead of ignoring it, Lisa decided to respond professionally, sending a polite email explaining the compliance of her gate. She hoped logic and civility would win. They didn't. Within days, Karen escalated, issuing a fine that was more than half of Lisa's monthly mortgage payment. She also sent a strongly worded letter demanding removal within 10 days or facing further legal actions. The power Karen wielded was intoxicating to her, and she clearly thrived on instilling fear in residents. Lisa tried to reason with the board, but Karen's allies had filled every seat, ensuring that any objection fell on deaf ears. The situation intensified when Karen personally came by, inspecting the property as though she were a detective, taking photos of everything she found wrong, including minor imperfections like weeds that had managed to sneak through the sidewalk cracks. Lisa felt trapped in her own home, every movement scrutinized. But the worst was yet to come. Karen began to manipulate community perception, spreading rumors that Lisa was a difficult neighbor and a rule breaker. Letters appeared in shared mailboxes warning residents to beware of noncompliance without naming Lisa directly, but the implications were clear. Friends began to avoid her, and Lisa found herself isolated, fighting an enemy whose power was both invisible and suffocating. Feeling cornered, Lisa started documenting everything. Photographs, emails, timestamps. She built a meticulous record of Karen's harassment. But even this caution didn't stop Karen from taking the next step, threatening legal action for emotional distress and for supposedly creating community unrest. Lisa's anxiety spiked, but she was determined to fight back. That's when she realized she needed evidence beyond the obvious, proof that Karen's actions were not just strict enforcement, but targeted harassment. Lisa began discreetly recording interactions, capturing Karen's tone, threats, and absurd insistence on compliance that went far beyond the HOA's stated guidelines. The psychological toll was immense, but Lisa's resolve strengthened. The first chapter of her ordeal closed with her preparing to confront the full might of the HOA's machinery, armed only with meticulous evidence and a growing determination to reclaim her peace. Lisa knew the next chapter would bring confrontation, escalation, and a test of patience she hadn't anticipated. The neighborhood had witnessed quiet compliance, but now it was about to witness a subtle, calculated resistance that would shake the foundation of Karen's small kingdom. Lisa's first move was strategic. She reached out to a real estate attorney who specialized in HOA disputes, knowing that formal legal backing would be crucial if Karen tried to escalate. While the attorney analyzed the violations, Lisa continued documenting every interaction, careful not to provoke Karen openly, but making sure nothing went unnoticed. Karen, sensing resistance, grew increasingly aggressive. Notices came almost daily, each one more detailed than the last, demanding compliance on absurd technicalities, like the exact height of a fence post or the color shade of her mailbox. Lisa's stress mounted, but she kept meticulous logs capturing dates, times, and photographic evidence of each fine and inspection. Karen's behavior, initially seen as strict enforcement, now clearly bordered on tyranny. She began involving other neighbors, subtly pressuring them to side with her, using social guilt and the fear of fines to isolate Lisa. Some neighbors, afraid of retaliation, complied with Karen's suggestions, even if they had previously been friendly to Lisa. The environment became toxic. The once peaceful cul-de-sac was now a stage for psychological warfare. Lisa, recognizing the importance of community perception, decided to shift the narrative. She discreetly shared copies of Karen's aggressive letters and notices with select neighbors, carefully highlighting the harassment without provoking confrontation. Slowly, some began to question Karen's intentions and methods. But Karen wasn't idle. She launched a campaign of surveillance, sometimes lingering outside Lisa's home under the guise of routine inspection, taking photos and videos, always ready to accuse. It became clear that logic alone wouldn't win. Karen's obsession had turned personal. Lisa realized that the only way to protect her property and her mental health was to expose Karen's overreach. She worked with her attorney to send a formal cease and desist letter, demanding that Karen halt her harassment and follow proper HOA procedures. Karen reacted predictably, doubling down and calling an emergency HOA meeting, presenting a fabricated record of Lisa's supposed violations. The tension in the community reached a boiling point, and whispers spread that Lisa was defiant and uncooperative. But this time, Lisa had allies. A few courageous neighbors who had seen Karen's tyranny firsthand stepped forward, providing statements and corroborating Lisa's claims. The attorney coordinated with these witnesses, preparing a case that demonstrated pattern harassment, abuse of authority, and procedural violations by the HOA board under Karen's leadership. As the chapter closed, Lisa had transformed from a quietly compliant homeowner into a prepared, formidable opponent. Karen, for all her arrogance, had underestimated Lisa's resolve, and the stage was set for a confrontation that would test not only their patience, but the limits of HOA authority itself. Lisa knew that the coming days would demand courage, strategy, and an unyielding determination to reclaim her home from a tyrant who thought she could bend the rules, and the residents, to her will. The next phase was psychological warfare at its most intense. Karen ramped up the scrutiny, inspecting Lisa's property multiple times per week, documenting minor imperfections and reporting them to the board as though Lisa were an active threat to the community. Letters piled up, each one demanding compliance and threatening fines that accumulated rapidly. It became clear that Karen's obsession was no longer just about rules. It was about power and control. Lisa, feeling cornered but unbroken, decided to escalate strategically. She began attending every HOA meeting, armed with documentation, photographs, and testimony from supportive neighbors. The atmosphere at these meetings was tense. Karen projected authority, speaking with the confidence of someone untouchable, while Lisa calmly, meticulously presented her evidence, showing a pattern of selective enforcement and personal harassment. Slowly, whispers started to circulate among board members and neighbors that Karen's behavior was excessive, even cruel. The tide was turning, but Karen, sensing her grip weakening, struck another blow. She filed formal complaints against Lisa, claiming emotional distress and alleging that Lisa's documentation efforts were harassment of HOA officers. The accusation was audacious, but Lisa and her attorney responded with calm precision, providing dates, proof, and witness statements that demonstrated Karen's obsession and misuse of authority. The community began to see the cracks in Karen's armor. The HOA president, once seen as an untouchable enforcer, now appeared overbearing, vindictive, and out of control. Lisa's quiet resilience inspired neighbors who had been fearful into cautiously supporting her. Small victories began to accumulate. Fines were overturned, notices rescinded, and some procedural requirements for inspections were enforced more fairly. But Karen wasn't finished. In a desperate attempt to reassert dominance, she tried to organize a vote to remove Lisa from the community entirely, citing fabricated evidence of repeated violations. Lisa, however, anticipated this. She had compiled an ironclad case detailing Karen's repeated abuse of power and presented it to the HOA board, her attorney attending to ensure procedure was followed correctly. The result was a stunning reversal. Karen's motion was dismissed, and the board was forced to acknowledge her overreach. The chapter concluded with a pivotal shift. Lisa had not only defended her home, but had also begun exposing Karen's tyrannical behavior to the community. What had started as an isolated struggle had become a battle for justice and sanity within the neighborhood, setting the stage for a confrontation that would redefine the limits of HOA power and personal resilience. With Karen's authority under scrutiny, the final act of this saga unfolded with dramatic intensity. She reacted predictably, with fury, defiance, and increasingly desperate tactics. Karen attempted to intimidate witnesses, escalate minor issues, and even suggested legal action against neighbors who supported Lisa. But by this stage, the community was alert, and the attorney's groundwork had prepared a shield against these maneuvers. Lisa, now confident and resolute, began documenting Karen's every overreach in real time, including unauthorized inspections and harassment of neighbors who dared support her. Social media, carefully controlled and factual, also became a tool, exposing the community to Karen's repeated abuses while protecting privacy and ensuring evidence integrity. Pressure mounted. Karen's allies in the HOA, seeing the risk to their own credibility, began distancing themselves, leaving her isolated and desperate. Lisa leveraged this to organize a formal review of Karen's tenure, bringing in independent mediators and legal oversight. The evidence was undeniable, a clear pattern of personal vendettas, harassment, and procedural violations. The HOA board, facing the undeniable truth, moved to remove Karen from her position, and the final vote was unanimous. The neighborhood, which had once feared Karen's tyranny, began to heal. Lisa's resilience, patience, and methodical documentation not only protected her home, but restored fairness and transparency to the HOA. The final chapter closed with a sense of triumph. The homeowner had faced an overbearing, tyrannical HOA president and emerged victorious, setting a precedent for accountability, courage, and the power of meticulous preparation. Lisa's story, once a tale of intimidation and harassment, transformed into an inspiring example of standing firm in the face of tyranny, showing that even the most overbearing HOA enforcer could be held accountable when faced with truth and determination. If you've been shocked by how far one HOA Karen went to terrorize a homeowner, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories. Share this with friends who love real-life drama, and click the notification bell so you never miss a story where justice, courage, and community clash in the most intense ways.